To that Fox News alert. President Trump making good on another campaign promise.
Yep, in just a few hours, he's set to announce that the United States will officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Big move. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. And Griff, the backlash from some and support from some has already begun.
Yeah, good morning, guys. It is already inflaming passions, and it's a move that could upend decades of U.S. diplomatic efforts to broker a peace deal. But let's set the stage. Like many presidents before him, from Clinton to Bush to Obama, we heard campaign promises like this.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
But at 1 p.m. today, President Trump will actually follow through on it, formally recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and directing the State Department to begin the multi-year process of moving the U.S. embassy there from Tel Aviv, already in Bethlehem. Flags with President Trump's image are burning, the potential for violent protests rising, and the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem issuing a security warning on Twitter for American citizens, directing them to avoid the old city in West Bank. The move clearly angering Palestinians who want Jerusalem as their capital as well. President Mahmoud Abbas warning in this statement, quote, such a move will have detrimental consequences on the peace process and the prospects for the internationally endorsed two-state solution. Now, allies across the Muslim world are warning of serious consequences. Turkish President Erdogan threatening to break off ties with Israel.
Our struggle on this matter will continue with resolve. As a matter of fact, this can go as far as breaking off our diplomatic relations with Israel.
And as a precaution, U.S. Marine Corps anti-terror teams are deploying across the Middle East in and around U.S. embassies. And we're hearing from world leaders, guys, everywhere, from Iran to China, Syria, Lebanon, and even the Pope weighing in on things. All this ahead of Vice President's trip to Jerusalem in less than 2 weeks.
All right, so not much controversy with the decision. It's just business as usual. Thanks, Griff.
Thanks, Griff.
So they're going to move it, and it's officially not going to be moved. We have a waiver for 6 months to actually move the building, but some have said all you have to do is put a plaque on it, and essentially, it's moved. It's out of there.
The declaration itself is what's so significant. You know, 70 years ago, it took President Truman to recognize the state of Israel. We were the first country to do so when it was established in May of 1948. 70 years later, I truly believe, especially amongst his supporters, this president will be remembered for taking this courageous step that previous presidents have said. The Congress passed an act in 1995. We're going to move the embassy. A lot of talk about it. No one ever actually did it. This president looks like he's going to follow through.
Griff played one of those sound bites, but look at this. We have a montage of past presidents promising the same move.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel as chosen as its capital.
Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
He's saying remain the capital. You know, you can't ignore, I know this is highly sensitive for the Palestinians, but you can't ignore the fact that the legislature is there in Jerusalem. You have the prime minister lives there, as well as the Supreme Court. So it's almost already the capital. It just hasn't been declared that.
Yeah, Monday was the deadline to do it. They have a 6-month waiver to actually physically move it. Among the people that are against it, Saudi Arabia, France, Jordan have all weighed in and said, listen, don't do this. We've reassured the Palestinians it doesn't mean anything about the process. But we are not saying it should not be an undivided city. It's still going to be a divided city. We're not declaring that. We're just saying we are moving the actual embassy. Among the people in support of this is Senator Chuck Schumer. He's saying you got to be bold. Alan Dershowitz was high-fiving everyone he saw. Watch.
I think that President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is the perfect response to President Obama's outrageous orchestration of the Security Council resolution, which he pushed through as a lame duck that declared the Western Wall to be illegally occupied territory, the Hebrew University, the Hadassah Hospital, the Jewish Quarter, according to this resolution that was basically pushed through by Obama. These are outrageously flagrant violations of international law. The best response to that horrible resolution is for the president to say, we don't accept the UN resolution, and the best proof of it is we're going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. You say it's occupied, we say it's the capital.
Having walked and been at the Western Wall a couple of times, going again in February, you understand how disputed that place is and how significant it is. But what Obama did at the end of his term with that UN resolution was a thumb in the nose to Israel and to Bibi Netanyahu. What this president has done has reaffirmed our relationship with our ally there, fellow democracy, capitalist country. They're fighting Islamists every single day. And don't underestimate how significant it is that President Trump said he was going to do it. And unlike all the politicians before him, because that montage could have had Bill Clinton in it, Bill Clinton promised to move the embassy as well. This president said, I said I would do it, and I'm doing it. Today, President Trump is expected to follow up on this campaign promise.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
The announcement likely to also include the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. So what does this send to the world as a message? Here to weigh in is Fox News foreign policy analyst Kieron Skinner. Kieron, thanks for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. Former presidents, including George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, have all promised this, but they did not follow through. Why is this president following through?
I actually think because during the presidential campaign, Donald Trump was doing something that's actually unusual for a presidential candidate. He was beginning to work out an alternative theory of the international system, which included principled realism, as he calls it, as a pillar of America First. And this is an application of principled realism. It is a geopolitical reality that the administrative home of Israel is in Jerusalem and has been since the beginning of the Jewish state. It is a geopolitical reality that the sovereignty and juridical issues surrounding the long-term status of Jerusalem will have to be worked out between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And it's a geopolitical reality that nation states are able to negotiate best with each other when they move first from a position of their own national interest. And all of these factors have influenced Donald Trump, and he worked it through the interagency in the United States, and there was broad consensus across state, defense, and the White House, along with the National Security Council, that this was the time to make the move.
Kieron, now his critics will say he's stoking religious tensions. He's setting back the peace process. He's any number of criticisms of this move. What is the real intention here as it pertains to our relationship with our allies in Israel?
Well, to speak to that point, just give me a second here. It's I think, disingenuous to say that it's going to make matters worse and increase instability in the broader Middle East. The Middle East peace talks have been moribund for many, many years, fits and starts, with no major conclusion. So I think this act, in fact, may provide an assist to the negotiating parties because it shows that the United States has resolve. It's a very directed and narrow and specific act that the United States is taking. The president is not trying to resolve sovereignty issues. So I think in the long run, it will actually help jumpstart the Middle East peace process because the United States is the only outside power that has been the main facilitator of the peace process, and it will be needed in the next round of those negotiations.
Kieron, briefly, we've seen leaders of some Arab nations, Erdogan, who's himself increasingly Islamist, but also Saudi Arabia. They don't like this move, but you say, in some ways, publicly, their rhetoric is going to be stronger than how they really feel behind the scenes.
I think there's some of that. There's always posturing, and we see that from the European allies, and we see that in the Middle East as well. But the president has really vetted this decision. He's been talking to the leaders in the Arab world and other Muslim nations, and he's been talking about why he's doing this, walking them through his line of analysis. I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than we understand.
Yeah, as he said, you put your country first, I'm going to put mine first, and if we believe in our relationship with allies like Israel, we are going to stand with them. He speaks today at 1 o'clock. I'll be watching. I'm sure you will as well. Kieron
Absolutely.
Skinner, thank you very much for your time this morning.